It is a little bit after 5:30 p.m. I'm going to call the meeting to order for the CRA Governing Board. We have 5 members present this evening. Councilmember Pollack is away, and Councilman Britton, I believe, will be just a little late unless he's walking in right now. Is that you, Keith? Yep. All righty. We have Councilman Britton's in attendance as well. So at this time, I'll turn it over to John.
Very good. Thank you very much. Mayor Persampier, ladies and gentlemen of the CRA Advisory Board for the City of Oviedo. The first item on our agenda are the minutes of the September 18th, 2017 Oviedo CRA meeting.
I'd like to entertain a motion to approve. So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? None? Hearing none, call the vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Very good. The next item on the agenda is a resolution for an amendment of the CRA budget based on the direction that was received at the last CRA meetings to prepare a CRA budget that had more on-the-ground projects, more brick-and-mortar type projects, and several projects were proposed to be included in that. The adopted 2017-2018 budget, has a reserve for contingencies of approximately $130,891. Of that, we went through and allocated a certain amount of funds to some proposed projects. And those projects include, and this is additional projects for inclusion in the 17-18 budget. Those projects include the Share the Road bike lane markings, the SHARO markings, a facade grant program application, reserve funding for one facade grant application, the CRA plan update, taking away the downtown master plan update portion, and that is all. So we allocated funding for, we can start with each one of these. For the bike lane markings, we identified 6 preliminary potential locations for the SHARO bike lane markings throughout the CRA. We sent that information out to the CRA board members and received comment from one CRA board member with regards to potential locations of those bike lane markings and have incorporated those revisions into the bike lane marking map. And that bike lane marking map is attachment number 1, page 4 of attachment number 1. And it shows the locations of 6 SHARO markings throughout the downtown Oviedo CRA. The SHARO lane markings come up to approximately $68,000.41. That includes the maintenance of business and also mobilization and maintenance of traffic costs as well. The next item identified as a potential new project for the 17-18 fiscal year includes a facade grant. The CRA had received 2 applications or interests for applications for facade grants. One of those applications was for a property that was located outside of the CRA.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Jones, or
yes, ma'am.
either one. Just wanted to let the people come in and know that 6:30 is when we are swearing in new officers. You're in the right place, if that's what you're here for.
No.
Oh, okay.
But yours will probably be at 6:30 as well.
One of the facade grants is located, or one of the facade grant applications is for a parcel that is located outside of the CRA boundaries, and the second facade grant application proposed is inside the CRA boundaries. We are recommending that the CRA allocate funds for the CRA grant, for consideration of the CRA grant that is located within the CRA boundaries. We still have yet to receive that application from the applicant, so we would just be reserving the funds for consideration of that application. The third item is the CRA plan update. The CRA Governing Board asked how could the plan be updated to recognize the existing conditions and trends and modify the CRA projects list to include new projects, such as public art, residential improvement programs, etc. In order to provide timely and cost-effective update of the plan, we prepared a revised scope for the CRA plan update that only accommodated the CRA plan update requirements of Chapter 163 and did not address the downtown master plan scope of services that had been previously requested by the Planning Department. The estimated cost for updating of the Oviedo CRA plan is $48,850. Based on that, should these items be included in the fiscal year 17-18 CRA budget, it would reduce the reserve for contingencies amount to $4,000, and the CRA total budget would remain at $511,891. With regard to CRA plan impact, the proposed projects and activities are consistent with the adopted redevelopment strategies, programs, and tasks in the 2010 Oviedo CRA plan. And it's the recommendation of the CRA coordinator that the CRA Governing Board adopt the Resolution 11017 to accommodate these 3 extra projects for inclusion in the 2017-2018 project budget.
Thank you, John. Anything
Yes, sir.
else to add? John, anything else? Are you good?
I'm good, sir.
All right. Is there a motion from the board?
Make a motion for discussion purposes?
That's not a motion. It's got to be yes or no motion.
Motion to deny for the request to amend the budget as provided for discussion purposes. How's that? Sorry, I'm new at this. What do you want?
Technically, we need a motion to either adopt this or a motion to deny.
Motion to deny.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second it for sake of discussion.
There cannot be a second.
Oh, no, it's a full-on second. But I may vote against the motion to deny. But this at least gets it where we can talk about it.
All righty. Let's.
I guess it's not material whether it's a motion to approve or deny. It all comes down to the final
As
vote.
long as we have a motion on the table. Motion on the table is to deny, and the motioner has the floor.
Okay. After receiving the interim update and reconsidering the information we got at the last CRA meeting about the effort involved to modify a redevelopment plan, I took a close look at Florida Statute, Chapter 163, 361, which I asked you to provide everyone today, John.
Yes, sir.
And it appeared to me that the procedure and process you provided us was to adopt, not modify, or modify where we're changing the boundaries of the district, or we're changing the expiration of the redevelopment plan. So in looking at 163-361 sub 1, it appears to me that all that's required is that this agency recommend to the governing board, which is the city council, that we want to change, that the notice provisions of this chapter be fulfilled, which is 15 days prior written notice, other than meeting notices, to all of the taxing authorities in the CRA, and that the governing body, which is then the city council, can have a public hearing and adopt the modification. So when I look at a $45,000 budget item, I understand that that scope could be bigger, but I see that there's some things we've talked about doing that we could very simply recommend to the city council we change one line item and therefore go ahead and adopt. And that's why I'm opposed to what's in front of us, because I think we should go down that path first. I will mention to the rest of the members at the last meeting, and it's in the minutes, I requested that at this meeting we have the opportunity to talk about projects we might have in mind ourselves, and one that I've raised before and other people seem to have interest in, that's designed and can be funded with the monies we have, is the Wood Street connection. And when I look at the redevelopment plan, there's a line item that says prepare, design, right-of-way acquisition and construction for the Lindsay Lane extension. For those who don't know, Lindsay Lane goes through wetlands and it couldn't really be extended. And there is a design for an alternative project called Wood Street. So very simply, if given the opportunity, I would suggest that we recommend to the city council to change Lindsay Lane to Wood Street, and in just one notice and one hearing, we can come back and amend our budget ourselves to fund that if the city council does so, and we do recommend it. That's what I've got. That's it.
Thank you. Seconder?
That sounds like a very intriguing thing, if we could figure out a way to fund that sooner rather than later. I was also kind of interested on this list about the talk of extending Hillcrest and Clark Streets. Clark Street in particular, because we just approved a preschool that's going to go there and presumably interfere with Clark Street extending. So that's something where I kind of wish somebody would have brought it to my attention that this was in the long-term plan for the CRA. So I don't really know where we go from here, given that that's listed here. So maybe that's a situation where it's not feasible anymore, sort of like switching out Lindsay with Wood Street. Maybe we should switch out, maybe just do Hillcrest and not attempt to do Clark Street. And I don't know where wetlands are. Is that something where we have information on it at this time? Which one would be the most feasible? And I'm not sure who to address that to.
I can only speak from a staff perspective, and because we've looked at the different things going up through the corridor, and the idea was to create a vehicular connection between 434 and, I guess in this case it would be Windy Pine. And when we looked at the Wood Street extension, it was the most cost feasible to do. It accomplished the goals, and it was the most cost feasible. When you look at extending Hillcrest, you run into the same situation with that extension, is that you go through the Dr. Pritchard's office there. You would have to go through that, plus transverse the wetland system that the city purchased behind it. We also looked at High Street, which once again would require, because of an elevation change, it would require us to purchase, I think it's 2 homes to connect High Street. Wood Street doesn't cause all those things, and so Wood Street is the one that's why we looked at the Wood Street corridor, because it was going to be the path of the most feasible path for us to do.
What about Clark Street, though? Because that would be farther down. I see how that creating that kind of a grid could alleviate some traffic, and it could address some of the concerns that were coming up with that preschool. If the preschool can go out back through Windy Pine, does that even line up right?
Well, Clark would put you north of Windy Pine. You wouldn't even connect to Windy Pine.
Would that then connect with Med City?
It would probably...
Maybe eventually?
It might be north of Med City. It would be a connection to Oviedo Boulevard. That's
Okay.
what it would be. But you would still run into the same situation with the wetland system, and I don't know how. I honestly don't know how it would line up with Med City as well.
So it sounds like some of these are just not feasible, and that Wood Street is feasible, and it's
Yeah.
already designed.
That's correct.
And we don't have funding set aside at this time through any other means?
I think it's on our list of projects for once it sales tax, but I don't think it's actually been
I haven't been funded yet.
allocated.
Okay, thank you. But the bike stuff, appreciate the rearrangement of prioritization. I probably have more thoughts on that than anybody here. And for those of you who are wondering, the little ranking system, I don't know if you noticed it. There was one proposed to us by email, and I sent some feedback to Mr. Jones saying perhaps we should reallocate and focus on things closest to Oviedo on the Park and trying to make sure that people get good non-vehicular traveling opportunities as that's all opening up. So that's kind of how the priorities have shifted. But hopefully you guys like them as well.
Correct. We received some good on-the-ground recon from Councilwoman Sladig as to the best used bike paths and most frequently used bike paths by residents.
Are these just regular bike paths, or are we painting green?
These are painting the Sharrow markings in the roadways to advise motorists that you are sharing the roadway with bicyclists.
Okay, so they're white striping.
No, they are the Sharrow symbol of the bicycle, the traffic bicycle symbol painted in the middle of the travel lane. So
None of them are wide enough to have actual bike lanes because
Correct.
of the design of the roads.
There's not enough existing right-of-way to paint those bike lane markers.
So
on the
it's just
sides.
like a little warning system that's going
Correct.
to be etched or painted on the streets?
Yes, sir. The technical term is a sharrow, and that's for a shared road. So if you don't have enough right-of-way, you have a constrained right-of-way, one way to advise vehicular traffic that you're sharing the road with bicycles is to have the sharrow symbol painted on that roadway. That was the recommendation from the bicycle study
For 60 grand?
for 6 markings. Yes, sir.
Six
And I
marking,
think
or
Six,
six?
six roads worth of
6
marking.
roads. Some of those roads have up to 15 markings on them.
Couldn't we just put signs on the side of the road for half the money or a quarter of the money?
Actually, the sharrow markings are very inexpensive compared to how many markings you get on
It's
the road.
still something crazy like 1,500 a marking, isn't it? Because of the special paint that has to be used.
It is shown in your attachment what the per unit cost is and how many units for each one of those roadways.
All right, well, let me go up and down the dais first, and then I have a lot more, so
So
we'll
for,
just hang on to that and
Yes,
tell
sir.
us in a moment. Who's next? Tim, you want to go?
Am I to comment on the motion on
The
the
motion.
table?
Yeah, let's just, whatever discussion you have on amending the budget.
So I just want some clarification. Dave's motion is to decline it and potentially use the $45,000 in the budget because we don't need to go through an administration to enable us to do what we want to do. I think that's what I got out of it.
That's currently the motion, yes.
Okay.
The motion is to deny what we have, and then I guess there'll be another motion or another direction to give the staff to bring back to us with implementing what Mr. Axel had
Right.
suggested, if the board agrees.
And I was just, because you got to look past this motion as to why.
I have a follow-on if we get past this motion.
Okay.
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Keith?
Yeah, what I don't like to see is a $500,000 budget with $4,000 of contingency. I think we may be overstretching ourselves a little bit, so maybe we need to go back and relook at what Dave recommended and come back from the drawing board and see if we can do a little bit better job with this.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
John, how much is the Wood Street extension?
I do not have that number on hand. I am sorry.
Ballpark it at all? Anything?
I thought it was 110, if I'm remembering
That
correctly.
sounds familiar, but I can't say offhand.
110?
It sounds low.
Yeah, I don't remember there being that much left of it, though. I think we had part
All
of
the
it.
design's done, it's just punch it through and pave it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. I mean,
Mhm.
that would be a nice connection. you
Mhm.
know? I'd like to change some of the stuff in here. Some of this is not what I had in mind. I really want to see some fruits of our labor, some stuff that Wood Street is a good one. The bike lanes, that is kind of expensive to mark those streets for bike lanes. Well, Dave, you're driving this ship. I want to hear the next thing. I like the Wood Street, and I think we can definitely play around with this a little bit.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
All right. All right. I'm going to make a suggestion again to everybody that I've made numerous times, and it's great that we all have all of these different ideas, but for us to come in here, once every 2 months and just bat around our own individual ideas with no direction or plan or consensus isn't getting anything done, nor is it going to get anything done. We really need to update the CRA plan together as a group, because there are 4 members of this group who had nothing to do with the original plan. There's 3 members who were involved in the plan, but that's already, 6, 8 years ago?
8 years, sir.
8 years ago. So that's the struggle we're having here, guys, is that, nobody wants to spend money to update the plan. Everybody thinks they know what's best. We can't get any consensus, and we're never going to until we sit down as a group over however months it takes, and we update the plan and we put a new direction for the plan, or we just follow the direction we have and we start knocking the things off, because there are a lot of things in there. And I realize some of this is in there that we're trying to knock off, but we just keep shifting things. So while I understand everybody wants to get something done and have something happen and put their hands in touchy and feely something in the CRA, I'm just not quite sure the way we're going about it is going to ever accomplish anything. And then conversely, for the council members, I'm going to bring up visioning again and again and again and again until we actually all sit down and do it, because that's the same problem we're starting to have in the city council chambers. But let's talk about this one first. We have to sit down as a group. The most productive time we ever had in the city is when Councilwoman Bearswell finally got us all to sit down and put the visions and the goals on paper. That's when things started to happen. That's when, instead of us meandering all over the place, we all had a direction, and some of those goals are still hanging up on the wall there as you enter the chambers on the right. And we've updated them a couple of times over the years, but they're stale. A lot of it's been accomplished, as Brian will say. So that's my 2 cents. I mean, because I can sit here and I can honestly say, and no disrespect to the councilwoman, but $68,000 to paint little bicycles on a street when we can punch a street through, but I don't want to say that, because I understand it's all part of a big plan. We just have to sit down and figure out what we're going to pay for. Now, that one facade grant that John's talking about denying is Dr. Stoner's old building. It's probably one of the most historic buildings that's left down there, but yet, because they are one lane of traffic over, he's got to deny them. The building that's asking for the facade grant certainly can use it, but it's nowhere near as significant as the building that wants it and is ready to go. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that, if we all sat down as a group, if we all updated this plan, not watered down update like this thing is here, that may be the better way to go. But that's just my 2 cents in thinking here, because it's kind of silly to come in here and just keep changing everything. But
Hey, can I add something
sure,
real quick?
go ahead.
John, I don't know if you know this, but, maybe probably a little too early, but, the legislature is looking at doing away with CRAs.
Senate Bill
and-
482. Yes, sir. I'm well aware of it.
Negatively impacting them wherever they are.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but I mean, could they ever come in here and stop what we're doing with if what they have and they're talking about? We got that from from Chris today.
Correct. Senate Bill 482 is making its way through committee right now. There isn't anything in there that would stop the CRA right now. There may still be some horse trading in the interim that would limit the term of the CRA and possibly limit the ability of the CRA to extend its operational time frame.
Right. Well, and the reason I ask is because, with that looming over us, and I agree, we should probably just prioritize. I mean, I think we definitely have to redo the plan. 8 years is a long time. But, if they come in here and say, okay, your CRA that we have for 30 years now is 10, I'm just saying what we have now, let's get the most bang for the buck in case they kill it.
I don't think there's anything in the current proposed legislation that would truncate any of the CRA lifespans.
Okay.
However, they would keep future CRAs from being formed
Okay.
and existing CRAs from being extended.
So we'll be so we'll be able to fulfill ours.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right. Well, that fixes that then. All right.
But to build on a point that the Mayor Persampierre brought up, a lot of significant events have happened since the redevelopment plan was first drafted, being the completion or near completion of Oviedo on the Park, the implementation and completion of Oviedo on the Park, the 419, 426 improvements advancing, the location of the Oviedo Medical Center and growth of the Oviedo Medical Center and the impact that it's had on the community, and over $89 million worth of capital investment inside the CRA. So the CRA has significantly and fundamentally changed, both physically and both from a demographic point of view. So those are significant community changes that should be reflected in any community redevelopment plan update so that you address the conditions of blight that were initially identified in your finding and necessity. Those included substandard housing, substandard public infrastructure, and bad roadway design and connectivity, to echo the discussion about Wood Street. So whether we can or cannot use a truncated approval and planning method, that is something that I will leave to the council to determine, council being the city attorney, to determine if Mr. Axel's interpretation of the Florida statutes is correct. I do not feel that it is correct. I feel that this CRA was born out of a partnership with the community and with Seminole County, and any update of the plan should follow that protocol as well. We have a county partner that is dedicating $11 million to the redevelopment of Oviedo, and I feel it is incumbent upon us to include them in every step of the process of the operation of this plan and the update of this plan. And that is why Mr. Slattery and Mr. Axel are on this board, is to keep them apprised of that. So it has been born in partnership, and it's something that needs to be continued to operate in partnership and build upon those significant achievements. Also, with regards to the update of the plan, we still have to have the update of the plan acknowledged by the local planning agency that it is in conformance and accordance with your adopted comprehensive plan. You also have to notify the county if the plan is updated as per the terms of the delegation of authority resolution, and then you also have to notify your taxing authorities or taxing agencies if you are updating or changing the plan, regardless of whether or not you expand the boundaries, regardless of whether or not you extend the operational time frame of the CRA. So it's time to update the plan.
Thank you, John.
Yes, sir.
Go back to the motioner. Do you have anything to add?
I was going to do a follow-on motion once there's a vote on this one. Keith, did you go?
Yes.
I went.
Okay. What I have to say really relates to my follow-on motion. Simply, I don't think tonight we should revise our budget for those two items, and we should see how this next motion goes. Preserve that money.
So the motion is we'll just vote on the motion that you made.
The motion is to not change is to deny the request to change the budget.
To stall, sort of.
No, there's a motion, there's a requested action for us to approve a modification of the budget, and my motion is to not do it, to not change the budget
At this time.
at this time.
Right, and that's what the seconder agreed to.
But what it seems like we really need is a legal opinion, because
No, we don't, about the budget, and I have a follow-on motion, and Mr. Groot's out of town, and before the city council meets, he can issue his judgment on it.
All right. Anybody have anything else to add for the good of the order?
Mayor.
Before I call the question? Keith? Was that you?
No, I didn't. I think Megan,
I think it was
It was me.
Mr. Cobb.
Oh,
Mayor.
sorry, I heard somebody.
If the intent is to not accept what's proposed, but to provide something different, then rather than denying the motion and then making a second motion, the motioner could just amend his motion to say, I'd like to make a friendly amendment to what's presented. If the seconder likes it, then you could just vote on the amendment and only have to do it once.
But we can't because Wood Street's not in the plan, so it's like a two-part thing. So I think
My follow-on motion does not relate to the budget. I'm perfectly willing to do it either way, but I didn't feel it's the same subject matter exactly.
All right. Let's call this question. All those in favor of the motion on the table to not change the budget at this time, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Dave, you have the floor.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that the Community Redevelopment Agency recommend to the City Council revision of the Community Redevelopment Plan, specifically revising Table X under Transit and Transportation to change the words Lindsay Lane Extension to Wood Street Extension, and to add one line item at the bottom of that portion of the chart that says street infrastructure improvements. That's it.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion. We have a second. Mr. Cobb, I don't think there's any issue with that motion, is there? I'm looking at everything right now.
Wouldn't that then constitute a change of the plan? And then we're back to the same question of, is it a quick run it up the flag in-house, or do we have to do the big, up to the county, one-year-long thing?
Yes, it's a change of the plan.
Okay.
Well, but I think, Mr. Axel, you could add into your motion that we're going to have to get a city.
Well, and I would request that the city attorney, on behalf of the CRA, judge whether this motion is something that the city council can act on in accordance with Florida Statute 163-361 and following the notice provisions therein. How's that?
Seconder agree to that?
Yes, and I'd like to propose a friendly amendment to eliminate talk of extending Hillcrest and Clark Street, since it sounds like they're not feasible in the first place. And if people start hearing that there's talk of extending through Dr. Pritchard's, this will
You want to take
corrupt
them off? Is that what you're saying?
Take them off, yeah.
It-
Is that too much too fast?
I don't agree.
Okay.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I don't agree to that
Yeah, no,
amendment.
leave them on there just in case. You never know.
Your plan is a long-range plan, so you don't want to take things away from it.
All right, so we have a motion from Mr. Axel. It was seconded. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can somebody repeat the motion, please?
I think this is what I heard from, well, go ahead, Mr. Axel.
I make a motion that the Community Redevelopment Agency recommend to the City Council of Oviedo that it consider revision of the Community Redevelopment Plan, specifically Table X, under the section Transit and Transportation, to change the line item that says repair, design, right-of-way acquisition, and construction for the Lindsay Lane extension to change Lindsay Lane extension to Wood Street extension, to add one line item at the bottom of that subsection of the table that says street infrastructure improvements, and to request that in advance of the city council hearing on this matter, that the city attorney provide an opinion on behalf of the CRA to see if we would be properly following Florida Statute Section 163-361 and to ensure we follow the notice provisions therein.
So if the recommendation comes back that it has to go through 4 different steps, then...
Well, then the city council can't hold a hearing at that point. But we would vote to recommend it. If it works, it works.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Tim, you have the floor.
So we're going to attempt to make this happen against what our own administrator is telling us we should do. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That's all I have.
Keith, anything? Steve?
John,
Yes, sir.
can we make those changes without getting in touch with the county? Lindsay, swapping Lindsay for Wood and adding that other thing? I mean, I heard everything you said, so, I mean, we can't just do that. The county's got to weigh in on that, too, before we do that, correct?
Yes, sir. You also have to have a public hearing where it's discussed, and you also have to take public input where it's discussed.
Right.
What's the process, John? Walk us through it. Let's assume what Mr. Axel is proposing, that this board agrees with doing it, how do we go about making it happen?
Step one is the direction from the CRA to update the plan. Step two, and this is where we differ, would be to review the existing conditions and the changes in conditions from the previous plan adoption. Step three would be a community workshop. This is also where we differ, to identify community needs and issues. Step four would be coordination with Seminole County during the project identification process. As a charter county, Seminole County dictates the operation of the CRA and whether the county provides TIF contributions. Step 5 would be production of a draft amended CRA plan, including the existing conditions, TIF projections, new capital projects lists for review by the city and county. Step 6 would be revision of the draft submittal sent to the local planning agency for a 60-day review. Step 7 would be review of the draft CRA plan by the county up to 90 days. And then Step 8 would be notification to the taxing authority, St. John River Water Management District School Board, Seminole County Government, of the upcoming adoption hearings. The adoption of the CRA plan would be by resolution, and the adoption of the revised, that would be by the CRA Governing Board, and then the adoption of the revised draft CRA plan by the Oviedo City Council would be by an ordinance. The process of amending CRA plans is designed to encourage public input, to address community needs and issues, to address the specific items identified in the finding of necessity, those conditions of blight, and it is designed to avoid the appearance of addressing pet projects, something which CRAs are now under attack for in the legislature. So any deviation from those public input processes in coordination with the taxing authorities is something that I would strongly recommend against.
Thank you, John. I mean, I think that gets to Tim's point and to the point that I was making earlier, ladies and gentlemen. I think that we really need to sit down as a board, look through the plan. If there's things in it that we need to change, just do it all in one fell swoop. I mean, this thing has 20-some-odd years to go yet, right, John?
Yes, sir. The analysis of the existing conditions and the review of the conditions of blight may identify additional projects that would be well served to be considered for inclusion of the plan. If those items are not addressed, then you're basically you're not looking at the conditions of blight and addressing those conditions of blight for which the CRA was founded. So you're kind of getting off task. You may be very efficient, but just because you can do it doesn't necessarily mean that you should do it.
Well, if we're going to do something along these lines, it sounds like we could also include a proposed change in boundaries and maybe do something like include Dr. Stoner's old office, because to me that feels like it should be in the CRA. And there's a few other things that feel to me like they ought to have been in there in the first place.
Right, and again, not to sound like a broken record, and I don't disagree with anything that anybody's saying here, but there's a process to doing it, which is why I sound like a broken record for the last 3 years. It's visioning, and until everybody wants to commit to that we're just going to keep going in circles, chasing our tails. You know, it's nice that nobody wants to spend money on a visioning. Let's call Marilyn Crotty and do pin the tail on the donkey. That doesn't work. We're a grown-up, mature city. We have to treat it like that. We have to sit down, hammer this out, get public input, and create the plan just like we did the first time. And yes, it was a time commitment, and yes, it took a lot of meetings and it took a lot of time, but that's what it deserves. And not only this plan, like I said, it goes to the other as well. But anyway, it doesn't appear to me like we're going to resolve anything. I'm going to go up and down one more time and
Yes, sir.
see. So let me see where we can take this.
Those guys go yet?
Mr. Axel, what would you like to do?
Did those two go yet?
No, we're good.
Do you have anything else, Steve?
No, my question is, okay, so we have a budget before us that we could have approved. So, John,
Yes, sir.
if there's some things in here that we don't like that we can all agree on
Yes, sir.
tonight, can we take them out and get the stuff like updating the CRA plan, the administration, the 2 facade grants, and can we get those? Can we get those going?
Yes,
and then take out some things that are some questions for right now, so we can at least get this going, and then
sit down and revamp the plan?
The three items that are under consideration for the amended budget are the bike lane markings, the facade grant, and the update of the CRA plan.
Well,
The other items were adopted at your last CRA meeting as part of your
so just those
budget.
three that we
Yes,
have
sir.
to approve tonight.
Yes, sir.
Or we can just leave all that money in reserve for the time being while we work towards an update and the visioning for the plan.
Well, we agree we have to update the CRA plan.
Right, no, I'm just,
But
we didn't
we
agree.
could
nobody
do
agreed to
the,
anything, I'm just asking a question.
it sounds like there's three potential levels of updating. There's I think it was like 169,000, and then we backed down to, we pulled 120 out of that and got to more like 45, which freed up money that now has been sort of shuffled around. What is the difference between what we would be getting if we were to adopt it as proposed tonight versus what we would get if we did what was originally recommended, which was that like a downtown, is this more along the lines of what the mayor's talking about, a revisioning of the entire Oviedo on the Park area,
No,
including the CRA?
It was only for the downtown area, and that would include visual preference survey, identification of design guideline changes, review of the land development code, and review of the comprehensive plan, and proposed revisions for the LDCs and the comp plan.
So this would not include the entire CRA. This would only be, which part would it include then?
It would include the entire CRA.
Okay, so it sounds like that gets us closer to where perhaps some of us want to be. So I don't know. I'm inclined to punt it until we have more information on if that gets us closer to the visioning that the mayor's talking about.
What you see before you tonight is a proposed budget to address the direction that was
That
given
we've
by the
previously
CRA
did,
board
yeah.
at previous meetings.
Right.
We sent this out to you 3 weeks ago for your comments. We received nothing. We get the comments from the dais. It's very frustrating to formulate policy in such a manner.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
John, I have to tell you, I'm a little frustrated here. At the last CRA meeting, I made the request that we have on the agenda the opportunity to discuss items we might like to add to the CRA plan. What we got was a proposal for you to get a big consulting job, okay? So I read the statute, it says what it says, not what you would like it to say. So I can revise my motion since it doesn't appear people want to proceed with this opposite recommendation from Mr. Jones. Can I revise my motion?
Sure.
Okay.
Didn't it already pass? Or
No, we didn't vote on it.
I thought that, this is for the Wood Street.
The current motion.
Gotcha.
Okay, so my current motion is that the CRA seek the advice of the city attorney as to statute 163-361 to see if we can amend line items of the plan just by recommending as the Community Redevelopment Agency to the council that such is done and that the proper notice provisions be held and a public hearing be held. Because that's what I read, that's what it says. So if we're uncomfortable tonight, let's get a read on it and deal with it at our next meeting.
Wasn't your original motion just to change one street to another?
That's all it was, but I get
Is
the
that-
sense that I'm being told
There's
we
a thing
can't
called
do it.
materiality. Is it really material to the overall plan? It's just a nit to me.
I'm saying it's not, but we're hearing this concern among some of our members that this is some terrible thing we can't do.
I'd personally say leave the motion you had on the table.
Then I'll leave it. So Lindsay Lane could not be done because of the wetlands. Wood Street is a couple blocks away, and it can be done. I don't see that that's some big change in intent. When you
Is,
look at the rest of the plan, it says there's a line item called potable water infrastructure. There's a line item called wastewater infrastructure. So I'm suggesting we add one called street infrastructure.
You know, Dave, what might be, and we got to move this along here because we have another meeting, but here's the deal. John, first off, I'm going to take a little offense. You're not going to get comment because I heard you say at the beginning of this meeting that one council member or one CRA board member sent you ideas. We cannot make decisions on email. This is why I constantly tell Brian, I don't want to have one-on-one meetings because it sends the wrong message. This is a board of 7. We meet together, so that's why I never comment unless I just have procedural stuff. So don't take offense that, we're not getting it. This is the venue to get it, not one, because you said something in here is incorporated off of one board member's opinion. I may not agree with that. So, yeah, and honestly, John, I'm not beating you up. As far as a big fat consulting fee, I'm going to defend him because he does a magnificent job with this. But this is how I read this, because this is ridiculous. You have this thing here, and right now we're talking about whether we spend the money, the $48,850, to update the plan. We need to do that. So I think we can agree we do that. Dave is asking for a legal opinion. Fine, let's let Lonnie look at that. But right now, the only thing I hear some grumblings is these bike lane markings. So let's take them out, approve the CRA plan, and let Lonnie look at what Dave is talking about, and we're good to go. That should be...
I didn't revise my motion when Keith interjected. So
Okay, but that's what we need to...
I think what we have in front of us is my original motion, so I'll leave it at that.
What was your original motion again?
Oh, my God. The short summary is that
Wood Street for Lindsay.
we change Lindsay Lane to Wood Street, add street infrastructure improvements, and get an opinion from Mr. Groot before this proceeds to City Council. Simple as that.
So the only thing we would do then is switch Wood for Lindsay, try to add that one line, get an opinion, and not change anything else for tonight.
And we can come back at our first meeting in January based on that, and if we have to act again, we'll act again. Well, maybe given the notice provisions, it'll be after that.
But we didn't approve the new projects. That was
No.
what was denied.
Yeah, that all stays in
That was tonight
contingency,
for now.
We're
because
just keeping
to do Wood
Status quo,
Street,
except for those small...
Well, no,
Yeah.
if we add this line item, if this
Yeah.
succeeds, when we meet again, we can actually fund it.
All right.
If it doesn't succeed, we move on with those other things. So we get a chance to do Wood Street, or we'll see.
Just call the question. All right, we'll call the question on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
Nay.
That passed, 4-2.
Previously.
All righty, John,
Sir?
the updated CRA plan for $48,850, just give us a quick overview, what that would include, so that way we had food for thought for the next meeting.
Yes, sir. The scope of services is attached to your agenda item.
Okay, it's in there?
Yes,
For us
sir.
to review?
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. What's the difference between that and the original that was way too expensive?
It doesn't include any of the visual preference exercises, any review of the land design or land development code and revisions to the land development code, any review of the comprehensive plan and revisions to the comprehensive plan.
Which all has to be incorporated if the CRA changes.
No, sir. It
No.
does if you want to do specific design guidelines and design criteria for the downtown area.
So it's visioning, essentially.
It's the result of visioning. It's the implementation of the vision is what's not included.
Right, because then it codifies it.
Yes, sir.
How many meetings was that? Did it include public input?
Yes, sir.
Lots of meetings? You were going to go out in the public, blah, blah, blah.
Yes, sir. That scope was attached to the previous budget agenda.
Okay, so we can find it and
Yes,
review
sir.
it.
I can send it back to
Why
both
don't
of
you
you
do that?
also. You can compare and contrast the two different scopes.
Okay. All right. Future meeting dates.
Future meeting dates are January 16th, 2018, March 5th, 2018, May 21st, 2018, July 16th, budget discussion, August 20th, budget discussion, October 15th, 2018, and December 3rd, 2018. All said meetings beginning at 5:30 p.m. unless otherwise noted.
Thank you, John.
Yes,
Anything
sir.
else with the good of the order?
Mr. Mayor, what would it take for us to have more meetings than every 2 months? It feels like we're going nowhere, and we're kind of going in circles, because we probably all forget what we did 2 months ago when we get back.
Councilwoman, we're going to keep having these meetings going nowhere until we all sit down together as a group and vision this thing out so everybody understands what we're doing. Then we can prioritize everything, and then you just start checking off the box as the money becomes available.
You know, can we maybe get some ideas for a planning session other than
If something's
under this
informal,
venue?
yeah, like a work session, if we could just stick everything on a whiteboard and hash it out, it seems like we probably could come to
not an all-day
consensus.
affair? Maybe a couple
Yeah,
hours one
2
evening.
hours tops.
All right. Why don't we?
Work on that, putting a scope together? Can you work on possibly the board having work sessions rather than meetings, or a meeting tied to a work session not before a council meeting?
Yes.
Standalone,
Just a standalone work session, yeah, for a couple hours.
about 4 or 5 hours?
Excuse me.
Guys, that's what it takes. You sit down, you have...
4 hours?
No, not 4 hours, but I'm just saying, you have
Well, you
5
know,
or
we might
6
want to
of
start by
those.
putting our own ideas together for before we sit down and throw the
Because
ideas in a hat.
everything we want might be in this plan already.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of prioritizing it rather than sitting here and debating what we want to do with $160,000. You put it in order, and as the money becomes available, it's just check, 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 right down the list. Yes, Brian?
Do you wish to have this before your January meeting, as in sometime in December, or let's get through the holidays
No,
first?
no, let's get through the holidays.
Okay, we'll do that.
Yeah, staff,
No problem.
you all have plans, we all have plans. We'll do this in January.
It's fine.
All righty, anything else?
No, sir.
Hearing none, we're adjourned.